Rain fell in unrelenting sheets, turning the street into a rippling silver mirror. The world blurred, but she stood there, clear, undeniable, a ghost from a life I'd buried 5 years ago. No call. No warning. Just her, drenched, fragile, and framed by the very storm that seemed to deliver her. Water streamed from her hair, clinging to her face, framing eyes I had once fallen into with reckless devotion. Her dress, soaked through, hugged her like memory, too familiar, too painful. It resembled the one from that night. The night everything shattered. But this time, she wasn't alone. A small boy stood beside her, no older than 4, his tiny fingers locked tightly in hers like she was the only anchor he'd ever known. He looked up at me with wide, searching eyes I instantly recognized. "This is your son," she said, her voice barely a whisper beneath the roar of rain. I didn't answer. Didn't move. I just looked at them, steady and quiet, while inside, the walls of my past trembled. Then I stepped aside, letting silence carry the weight of all the words I had no intention of speaking. 5 years ago, she walked out of our life wrapped in a scarlet dress, bare-backed, high-slit, unforgettable. It wasn't jealousy that had made me pause that night. It was instinct. I had voiced concern, told her how much attention that dress would draw, the kind she always said she hated. She laughed, carefree. "It's just a party," she said. But she never came home. There was no slow unraveling, no months of drifting apart. We had been solid. Quiet dinners, deep talks, nights spent lying awake, naming the children we wanted someday. Then it shifted, just slightly. Longer showers, later nights, eyes that started avoiding mine. I didn't accuse her. I listened. I watched the silence change shape. That night she told me it was a girls-only birthday celebration. The next morning, a coworker sent me a video. It wasn't a quiet get-together. It was a nightclub. Strobe lights, loud music, and her, on another man's lap, laughing like the woman I once loved had never existed. I watched it once. Truth doesn't need repetition. When she came home at dawn, reeking of alcohol and something more invisible but heavier, I didn't scream. I brewed coffee, poured her a cup, and said calmly, "It's over." She called me controlling, dramatic. So I left. No shouting, no closure, just a clean break. I changed my number, moved cities, vanished from everything we shared. But before I disappeared, I made one final, private decision, a scar's lesson made permanent. I froze my sperm. Not out of spite. Out of preparation. For the unimaginable. 3 years passed in quiet motion. Then a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a photograph of a boy with a swirl of curls and eyes that mirrored mine. I felt nothing. I placed the photo in a drawer and closed it. Then came the emails. First came the apologies. Then the declarations. Regret dressed in desperate prose. I didn't respond. But curiosity is a persistent thing. I hired a private investigator. The story he returned with was cruel in its symmetry. She had lost her job, moved back in with her mother. The man from that night vanished the moment pregnancy became reality. He denied everything. A year later, she began looking for me. She didn't know who I'd become. While she searched, I prepared. First, a quiet DNA test. The investigator retrieved a pacifier during one of her park visits. The results came back, 99.9% mine. Second, a lawyer. The best custody attorney I could find. Not to rip the child away from her, but to protect what mattered now. Third, I waited. And eventually, I let her find me. And so here she stood, holding our son like a shield, rain washing away her mascara and pride. "I need help," she whispered, voice trembling beneath the weight of 5 years. I looked at the boy. His gaze met mine, steady, curious, untouched by all the lies that surrounded his existence. She started to speak, apologies tumbling out like broken pearls. She spoke of loneliness, of mistakes, of missing love, of a little boy needing a father. I let her talk. I listened, but not to her words, to the space between them. Lies burn slow, but truth? It explodes. Then I handed her a folder. Legal papers, custody arrangements, visitation terms, boundaries written in ink. "This isn't a reunion," I said quietly. Its structure. She broke then, cried, pleaded, accused. Said I had no right. I met her gaze unshaken. You lost your right the night you walked out in that dress. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't punishment. It was clarity. Actions echo. Betrayal has memory. A week later, I met my son properly for the first time. We went to the zoo. I read him a book before bed. I watched him laugh, pure, bright, unfiltered. The way I used to laugh, back before trust was a thing I had to bury in vaults. I haven't told him everything. Not yet. One day, when he's older, I will. Not to poison him against his mother, but because he deserves truth, the whole unvarnished truth. As for her, she receives updates. Monthly. Through my lawyer. A name. A photo. A date. Clinical. Distant. She once had a man who would have done anything for her. Now I do everything for the one piece of that past worth saving.